All right, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning if you're out on the West Coast. We're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar for the day. We're going to be talking about the report formats in membership. And before we get started, I just want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the webinar panel that you have. You should have at the top of that panel a little arrow button that is either an orangish color or reddish color. And that will allow you to minimize that toolbar if you need to add some more space to the viewing area of your screen. Additionally, in that toolbar, there is a box for questions. So we're going to keep everyone muted for this webinar so we don't get too much background noise and disturbance. And so if you do have any questions about the topic at hand, go ahead and type those into the questions panel. And I'll be doing my best to keep an eye on that throughout the webinar, and any questions I don't get to during the course of the webinar today, we'll go ahead and talk about those at the end. So again, we're going to keep everyone muted, and if you have questions, type those into the questions panel. And let's go ahead and get things going. So we are working with our version 19. We are going to have a version 20 available later in the year. That's not going to affect reports too terribly much. It's going to give membership a nice facelift, but reports are going to stay pretty similar. So let's go ahead on in here to membership, and we'll get started. All right. So we're going to go in through the reports button right here in the quick access panel. You can also come up here to reports at the top if you're already in the member file. Both of these are going to give you the same options. So we're going to click on Reports Directory Export, which is the report you're going to use for the majority of the reports that you're going to be running in Church Windows. So let's go ahead and open that up. And first we're going to come to our Step 1 window, which is where we make the selections for who is going to be on the report. And it says that right up here at the top. I'm going to grab my little highlighter tool here. This is our who should appear on the report part. So any of the criteria that we enter here in Step 1 is going to relate to who goes on the report. Now, we are going to enter some search criteria using this drop-down at the top that says select a membership field. So when we click that drop-down, we have all of the different membership fields available in your database listed. And you can scroll like I'm doing right now, or you can type up here the field that you're looking for. So I'm going to go with status. Oops, it selected attendance for me. Let's go ahead and clear that out. One more time. And we're going to type status. And you can see as I type more letters, the options change. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want a report of all my active and associate members. Why don't we throw in our out-of-town members too? And let's click our selection button, this add selection button. It's got the green plus sign for add, and that takes that selection that we've made and added it down here to be our selected criteria. Now we're not going to go into too much detail with creating more complicated queries. That's another topic for another webinar. So we're just going to stick with that one simple criteria. A few other options you have on Step 1 are this giver number box, if you want your query to have anything to do with giver numbers. And then you've got this include box where you can choose to limit it to members or visitors only, and whether or not to show your terminated or inactive people. You also have on Step 1 a Giving Pledging tab and an Accounts tab, and we're not going to be using those today. They allow you to add donations criteria to your membership report. So very useful, but we're not going to talk too much about that today. We are, however, going to talk about this Sort tab because this is a very important one for how the report ends up looking. So you are able to sort by up to 3 fields. So some common ones might be name, obviously, if we want an alphabetical list. You could sort by zip code. You could sort by status. You have lots and lots of options here, but we're going to go ahead and stick with name last first. That's going to give us an alphabetical listing. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next now that I've got my criteria and my sort order selected. And that's going to bring us to step 2, where we actually set up the format of this report. Let's see. Something's funny. We don't have the window showing up the way it's supposed to. Let's see. Let me just reset this real quick. Sorry about this, folks. Not sure what's going on there. So we're clicking Reports, and we're choosing Reports Directory Export. And we're not going into too much detail on setting up the report query itself. That's going to be covered more in some of the other webinars. Today we're mostly going to be focusing on the format of the reports as opposed to the search criteria. So for our example today, I had just selected status. Whoops, it would help if I could type, huh? Alright, there we go. And we'll pick a few of our status codes and we'll go to Next. So you can select any criteria there. It doesn't matter what you select in step 1, it's just going to affect who goes on the report. And so when we get to step 2 here, we have our list in the bottom of all of the people who met that search criteria. And you can go through and uncheck some people if you don't want them. You can uncheck all and just select a few people. Or you can check everyone, and that's the default selection, is everyone. Now up here at the top of the screen is where we actually make our report formatting selections. We have 6 choices here, and of those 6 choices, the basic is going to be used the majority of the time. And with the basic report, it's typically going to default to using the basic columnar report. And the basic columnar report is going to include the name, the address, and the home phone. So if I go ahead and click Print, it's going to bring up the print preview. And like I said, you'll see here we have name, address, and home phone. If we maximize that, that is our list. All of our people who met that criteria listed with their basic information in columns. Now, if we close that, let's say I want to see just their name and phone number instead. I can click this Select Fields button over here and create a new report for name and phone. And after a moment or two, it's going to bring up our column selector so that we can select the fields that will be on our report. Now, if I click on address block here, I can get rid of that one since I just wanted name and home phone. And if I click OK on that, and then I click Print, you'll see now we have our list of just names and home phone numbers. Now, if I want to, let's say, change the labels at the top of those columns, because I don't really need it to say last first, that's pretty obvious. So I can just click in this column for the report column header, and I can backspace out what I don't want it to print on the report. I know that's their current home phone, so I'm going to take that label away. Additionally, here in the column selector, you have this width column where I could make the available space for the name a little bit less if I wanted to fit more fields across the page. That would be really helpful for that. Then if I go ahead and click Print again, you can see it took away some of that extra wording in those 2 column header labels, and it scooch the home phone a little closer to the name field because I made that name field narrower. Now if I close out of my print preview, let's say I want to put a header at the top of that report. If I click Edit in here, right below our organization name in the center of our Report Designer screen, we have this empty box. And if I double click in that empty box, I'm able to type in there. And so I can call this a name and phone report, or I could just call it, let's say, contact list. And then I can hit save. And now if I close that Report Designer, the edit screen, and click print, now you can see just below our sample church name we have contact list. Pretty great. Now, of these 6 options that we have up here for the type of report, the basic and these 2 export options, the mail merge export and the directory export, are all going to use this select fields column selector, and the all information will use that as well. So these 4 report choices on the outside all use that column selector. Now I point that out because here in the middle, our custom and our directory reports, they use only that edit button with the report designer. They don't have that column selector option. So if we switch to a directory, you can see it grayed out that select fields and this blue text changed. And that's to let us know that directories are very specifically looking for the include on directory and directory report order fields. And if we choose one of our standard reports, let's do we'll do the classic horizontal directory. And if we click print, this is going to be one of our general templates that comes with the software. It's going to list the last name and the parents' names and then the kids' names below if there are kids. And a custom report is going to be similar, however, it's not looking for that include on directory field. So just keep that difference in mind. You're going to have the same template choices here in this drop down for custom and directory, but directory is basing its information off of the include on directory fields. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the all information report. If we start with our basic all information report, this is going to give us all of the information that appears based on the fields that we've selected. Now, this happened again with the basic Columnar report. Those default templates, we can't save over them, so it's going to ask us to create a new report. So I'm just going to call this demo for now. And this is going to bring up our column selector again. But this time in the column selector, it's already got all of the basic fields selected. So if I want to delete some, let's say I don't want our groups and classes or skills and interests, I can hold my control key down on the keyboard and click both of those and click the left facing arrow to remove them. I can also, if I want to move a field up higher, use my up arrow or my down arrow to rearrange these fields as needed. And if I close that column selector, we'll look at some of these options we have in the upper right-hand corner. We can have the report include V and D indicators, V for visitors and D for donations givers. We can have the last names printed in uppercase letters if we'd like. And we can choose our options for the year on birth dates. We can include it for everyone or just for kids. Then we have some grouping and page break options, which are especially useful for an all information report. Because with an all information report, if I check this page break on each person, then each person's information will be on its own sheet, and I could pass that sheet out to my members and have them add any missing information or correct any incorrect information. And on the All Information Options tab, we have a checkbox to print the empty fields. And that would be great, like I was saying, if we want to hand this out to people for them to fill in missing information. So if we take a look at that print preview, we can see there are some blank spaces where someone could fill in all the missing information. And when that information spans 2 pages, it's going to break on the second page. So we can see that there are separators in between each person's record. All right, and Keith was wondering about the template choices under custom, if they can be modified. Absolutely, the custom reports can be modified. The thing about modifications are some of the templates that come with the software, those modifications have to be saved under a new name. So you could take one of the reports that come with the software, like, for instance, the classic horizontal or the classic multi-column. And you can see in my demo list here, there are tons of revisions. So that just goes to show you're able to absolutely create or modify as many of these templates as you'd like. And that goes for all of the different categories of report types. I hope that answers that question. Great. Okay, so finally we'll talk a little bit about our exports over here. Now, if I select, let's say, the directory export, let's say I'm going to have LifeTouch make a directory for my church, and they need my membership data to make that directory for us, our photo directory. If I do a directory export, and I say I'm going to create a new one and call it directory, this again gives me the list of fields that I can select or deselect to include on this export. So we'll just stick with the basic fields and click OK. And now you can see the upper right hand choices over here have changed. So where it says File right here, this is where it's going to save the export that we're creating. So if that's not where we want to save it, we would click this little ... button and use our file browser to navigate to where we would actually like to save it. Then we have the choice between tab or comma for the delimiter. Now, I know that word delimiter throws a lot of people off. All this is determining is whether it's going to be a tab file, which has a txt ending, or a comma file, which has a CSV ending. So that choice is going to be entirely based upon what the company wants from you. So typically those companies will accept either. So it kind of doesn't necessarily make a huge difference. But you're going to want to be sure you know if it does matter to the company that you are working with. And then all you would do is click Export down here. And that would save that file, and you could open it up in Excel or Notepad or any other external program. All right, I think that just about covers most of our report format items. We do have videos for the details of working with custom and directory reports. We're just kind of going over the more broad strokes of that today. But if you want to learn more about making very customized directories, check out some of our other webinars, either recorded or live, about that. Let's see. Mona, that's a very data-specific question that you've asked, so I'm going to ask that you give us a call to ask about that at our support line, or shoot us an email, and we can help you work through that data-specific issue. Are there any other questions from anybody about the general idea of creating any of these basic reports? We are just about at our 20-minute mark, so I don't want to go too much longer in case you guys have places to be and things to do. I'm sure you do. And so let's see, William, I will talk to you in a minute about version 16. Yes, version 19 is the current version. Version 16 is from back in 2013. So that's kind of a big process that we'll want to take care of with you when you're ready. Any other questions about our reporting capabilities? Yes, Kelly, this will be available online. There's actually already a recording of this same topic. If you search for report formats, when you're on our website, you should find that. There's a version 17 one and a version 19 one. But any of these that haven't been covered get updated typically on Fridays. We try to keep those webinar recordings as up to date as we can. All right, well, if nobody else has any questions, you can go ahead and sign on out. I'm going to wait a few more minutes and see if any other questions come through. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in, and we hope it was helpful for you.